If there's nothing else, we will go to our speaker. This is Tim Crawford. He's a resident of Noblesville. He's a graduate from Carmel High School and various other degrees. And I'll let him introduce himself and tell you who he is and what he is, or why he's here.
Can we stand up?
And however you want.
The camera's kind of pointing this way. I don't know if you want me to stand. Well, my name's Tim Crawford. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about me. Probably seen some stories on the news, read a few things in the papers. I understand a lot of people probably aren't happy with me being in this candidate running for this position. I've heard a lot about it. Last week I met with the Franklin Township Democratic Club. That thing that you just brought up was handed around. I signed it, of course. I lived in this area for 24 years. I have a lot of views that you might consider Republican. There are times where people would be like, wow, that's not necessarily Republican. There are a few things, but a couple of things that I think we should all sit down and agree upon. That, when the Democratic Party started out, they initially believed in state rights. This is what, with things going on in government, and I've probably seen a little ADD at times, but I'll eventually get to you guys and we'll do some questions, Q&A type thing. But I support state rights big time. I think when you start putting stuff on all your eggs in one basket in the federal government, it will definitely lead to failure. That's what people need to get in their heads and start realizing and letting people focus on their state government. All these lobbyists are focused in one spot in Washington now. I know there are some in the state levels. Hi there. How are
Sorry.
you? That's okay. But I think you more or less want to know who I am. So I went to Vincennes University and Ball State. I am very bipartisan, and I would love to hear everything you guys have to say to me. I definitely want to know how you feel. Also went to Ball State University. I do not have a degree. Now, some people might be like, okay, is this kid smart enough to do this job? And I have been a student of life. I work as a senior estimator for Southern Retail Construction. That gives me, I've learned a ton in the construction business, and all I deal with all day is budgets and money management and how to finance it, how to get a project going on track successfully. It's what our government needs more than anything. We need to get fiscally responsible. And that job that I've been doing for the last 5 years really, I think, would give me a good focus to step in Congress and say, okay, let's really get our budget under control. I played rugby in high school. I have a lot of friends from this area. There's a couple things on the website people might have came across that they think, oh, I don't totally agree with that. I put right to work on there, and this is kind of the way I look at it. I used to work for a union. I worked for that union right there that you are holding that paperwork from. I worked for Kroger when I was in high school. I respect the ability and what the unions do. I'm not totally against them. We have the right to peacefully assemble, and I think that's what the unions do. They say, okay, we demand a fair wage. I understand that completely, and I think they should be allowed to exist. There's a number of things I'm sure we'll probably get to them as you guys have read the website, and I guess I'm just going to open it up to questions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said you are in support of states' rights.
Yes.
How old are you?
Me, 28.
You're not old enough to realize that states' rights in the South meant that those states enacted laws against my people. That kept them from voting, kept them from going to decent schools, kept them from getting health care. And so when you say state rights to me, that sends up a red flag, a real red flag. Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish. So first of all, if the federal government hadn't stepped in, the South would still be asking for polling taxes before my people could go and vote. If the federal government hadn't stepped in, separate would still be unequal. If the federal government hadn't done a lot of things for my people, we would still be in slavery. So don't say state rights to me and expect me to support you, because I'm not. That is the wrong thing to say to somebody like me. And I'm 64 years old, so I lived through a lot of the discrimination, even here in Indiana. I went to school here, and I went to Crispus Attucks High School, which was built because whites did not want to go to school with blacks. All of my family went to Crispus Attucks High School. Now, I'm a proud Tiger, so I don't have a problem with that. Now, but be careful about how you present yourself to a certain audience, because this audience right here, you know, as you can see, I'm the only person of color in this room. But if they grew up in Indiana, they know the history of Indiana.
Yeah.
And they know that Indiana had a history of being very racist. 60 miles from here in Marion, Indiana, my cousin was lynched August the 7th, 1930. So when you talk about states' rights, honey, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know history. You have to know history. And I'm a genealogist, and I'm a professor at Indiana University, Kokomo. So I know the history of Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's let Tim answer.
She wanted to get her point across, and I totally respect that. I agree with you. This is a whole learning curve for me. I mean, I am very young, and this is why I'm going to small group meetings big time right off the get from this point on, just so I can get people's feedback.
Okay.
I want the good and the bad, you know what I mean? I'm not afraid to, if someone says I don't like you, I'll take it, you know what I mean? It's like your critics are your best friend, you know what I mean? They point out your worst flaws, and that's what, and when I say that, civil liberties is very important to me, but people protecting human rights just as important. That I understand. There's a time and a place for the federal government to step in. And when it comes to the abuse of people or the degradation of a race, creed, color, we need to step in. Everyone should be stepping in. And I totally agree with that. But the times when it's about money or, pretty much if it's just about money, or in the case of like, some people might be pro-abortion. Me, I'm not personally pro-abortion, but I think the state, if you're from California, right? If California wanted to say, we're going to have it, you know what I mean? And Indiana says we don't want to have it. Actually, the local governments can actually start snipping it real quick just by not even zoning to have an abortion clinic. You know what I mean? So the regions of the world, or the United States that don't want it, are going to find ways not to have it. You know what I mean? But I'm personally pro-life. I'm all about protecting the sanctity of life, but it's all about the rights of the states. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what you're saying then is that since you are not for abortion, you feel that the states will end up legislating so that abortion clinics could not operate, and therefore it is not the place of the federal government to protect the rights and the choices of those of us for whatever reason who want to be able to. I mean, the reason that pro-choice is there is because it serves both parties. It serves both viewpoints. And you're saying that it's okay for a state to completely eradicate my ability to go in and have a choice over my own health? That's what you just said, young man. That is just what you said. You said that if your opinion is that the federal government should not come in a place where people's rights are being taken away, and my right would be taken away if what you're saying is correct, that you think the federal government should have hands off on states' rights under that rule and allow them to turn around and go against something that the entire country so far has supported.
Well, okay, I know what you're saying.
Who's saying we shouldn't be under democratic